It started like any other Friday night: cheap beer, loud music, and the hum of college kids blowing off steam. But by 2 a.m., flashing lights cut through the dark, and a young man was lying in a driveway, bleeding out from a single gunshot. His name was Danny Travis. He was 21, and he was the son of a decorated homicide detective. What happened that night would uncover not just a killer, but a legacy of silence, protection, and painful truths. Sometimes the line between justice and grief is razor thin. When a young man with a promising future is gunned down outside a house party, the fallout reaches far beyond one family. He wasn't just another college student, he was the son of a veteran homicide detective. In a town where law enforcement is tight-knit and secrets don't stay buried for long, the search for answers turns inward. And what the investigation uncovers will test loyalty, challenge truth, and leave a community forever changed. It was the kind of spring night that begged for trouble. Warm air clung to the streets of the sleepy Midwestern college town, where laughter echoed down tree-lined sidewalks and solo cups littered the lawns of aging rental homes. At 208 Crescent Avenue, a two-story white house with sagging gutters and a yard full of beer cans pulsed with music that had long since angered the neighbors. Inside, bodies swayed under dim lights, vaping smoke hung heavy in the air, and no one noticed the argument brewing outside. At 1:39 a.m., two sharp voices rose above the beat of the music. A few heads turned, but no one intervened. Seconds later, a single gunshot cracked through the air like a whip. Then silence. Partygoers spilled out the front door, laughter turning into gasps and shrieks. A young man lay motionless on the driveway, blood pooling beneath his head. Someone screamed. Someone else ran. A girl dropped to her knees, hands over her mouth, eyes wide. "That's Danny. Oh my God, that's Danny Travis." The name swept like wildfire through the crowd. Danny Travis, son of Detective Raymond Travis, 21 years old, majoring in criminal justice at Western County State. The golden boy. The kid with his father's jawline, his mother's heart, and the unwavering ambition to join the force like his old man. And now he was lying cold in the driveway, one bullet hole in his chest. The first responding officers arrived just 3 minutes after the 911 call. They recognized the address, and when they saw who was lying on the ground, radios crackled with disbelief. "Dispatch, notify homicide. Officer down." I repeat, officer's family. Victim is Danny Travis. Detective Raymond Travis was in bed when his cell rang. It was a call no parent should ever receive. His son had been shot. No, not just shot, killed. The ride to the scene was a blur. He drove like a madman, siren blaring from the dashboard of his unmarked car. His partner, Sergeant Colleen Vega, tried to stop him from going to the body, but nothing could hold back a father who had just lost his only child. Danny was already covered with a white sheet. Raymond ripped it off anyway. He fell to his knees. "Jesus, no. Not my boy. No." That night, the police line blurred between blue and blood. Officers rallied to protect one of their own. The scene was locked down tighter than usual. Witnesses were separated, statements collected. But the questions began mounting faster than answers could be written down. Who was he talking to outside? Did anyone see a weapon? Was it gang-related? Did Danny know the shooter? Most of the kids at the party were drunk, scared, and uncooperative. Some were angry. More than one shouted, "Cops protect their own, but who protects us?" Detectives quickly ruled out robbery. Danny still had his wallet, phone, and car keys. There were no signs of a struggle, just a single 9mm shell casing and a faint trail of footsteps leading away from the backyard. The theory shifted. This wasn't random. This was personal. And someone at that party knew why. Danny Travis wasn't just a cop's son. He was also someone with a secret past few wanted to talk about. There were whispers of a fight he had with another student the week before. And then there was that mysterious text message he received just 15 minutes before he was shot. "Come outside. Now." The number was unknown. Burner phone. Trace went cold. But Danny had also been dating someone new. Maya Sanderson, a 20-year-old transfer student from Detroit. She was seen at the party earlier that night, but after the shooting, she vanished. No calls. No texts. No address on file. And when police pulled up her class records, they found something even more concerning. Maya had dropped out 2 weeks prior. So who was she really? And where had she gone? The media caught wind of the case by morning. Headlines screamed, "Cop's son murdered at college party, shooter still at large. 1 bullet, 2 lives lost. Police tight-lipped on investigation." The mayor issued a public statement within 24 hours, promising swift justice. The university offered grief counselors. A candlelight vigil was planned on campus. But none of that mattered to Raymond Travis. All he wanted was to find the person who killed his son. And he didn't care how many rules he had to break to do it. He had a folder in his office, one he'd kept hidden from IA. It contained intel on local gang affiliates, unsolved campus assaults, and student informants. Now he started digging through it with renewed obsession. Somewhere in the mess he believed was the truth. But the deeper he dug, the more dangerous the path became. Danny hadn't told his father everything. About the people he was hanging out with. About the debt he owed. About the favors he might have called in from the wrong kind of people. And what no one realized yet was that this murder wasn't about just one night. It was about something that happened years before, something buried under police files and street silence. The kind of secret that doesn't stay buried forever. He wasn't just another kid with a clean record. He was the son of a cop, raised in a home where justice wasn't just a word, it was a job. But beneath the Letterman jacket and clean-cut smile was a young man carrying secrets of his own. As the community mourned his death, some whispered the truth was more complicated than anyone wanted to admit. To the outside world, Danny was the textbook definition of a good kid. He played shortstop for the Ridge Valley Ravens, volunteered at local food drives, and even had plans to join the ROTC program at his state college in the fall. His father, Detective Mark Travis, often bragged that his son had better instincts than half the force already. But like most young men in their 20s, Danny lived a life that was layered. One for the family, one for the world, and one known only to a select few. And it was that hidden life investigators would soon be forced to unravel. Detective Travis hadn't slept much since the night his son was shot. Even when he wasn't at the station, he found himself pacing the dark hardwood floors of his home, haunted by everything he didn't know. He replayed their last conversation 100 times. "You good to drive tonight, son?" "Yeah, Dad, I'm good. I'm not planning on drinking." But Travis knew his son. The confidence in his voice was always there, even when he was lying. In the early hours of Sunday morning, while police combed through the crime scene and reviewed grainy doorbell footage from surrounding homes, Travis began doing his own digging, starting with Danny's phone records. He wasn't supposed to have them. They were held as evidence, tagged and logged like every other piece from the scene. But being a cop had its privileges, and when you're grieving, lines blur. What he found hit him like a gut punch. Multiple missed calls from a number labeled Maya, just 15 minutes before the 911 call. The last outgoing text from Danny read, "It's cool. I'll talk to him." Travis didn't recognize the name. He'd never heard of a Maya. And that was the first red flag. Meanwhile, Danny's college friends, initially tight-lipped after the shooting, began to talk under pressure. They described Danny as loyal, funny, and driven, but also impulsive. He'd been in a heated argument outside the party shortly before the gunshot. Some witnesses claimed it was with a girl. Others said it was with a guy in a dark hoodie pacing near the curb. None of it was concrete. No clear suspects. No gun recovered. Just scattered pieces of a puzzle that wasn't fitting together the way a clean-cut murder should. At the same time, rumors were spreading fast on campus. One post on a student message board read, "Danny wasn't who people thought. This isn't random. Ask about the parking lot thing from last month." Parking lot thing? Travis followed the breadcrumb and pulled the incident log from campus security. On April 9th, just 4 weeks before his son's death, Danny had been questioned in a verbal altercation involving another student, one with gang affiliations. No arrest had been made, and Danny never mentioned it to his father. The deeper Travis dug, the more complicated the image of his son became. And as painful as it was, he couldn't ignore the fact that his boy might have been in trouble long before the bullet flew. The silence around Danny's death wasn't from lack of witnesses, it was fear. Fear of what they saw. Fear of who they saw. And worse, fear of who might be listening. In the days after the shooting, the truth didn't just hide in shadows. It was being swallowed whole by a code of silence that reached far beyond the crime scene. Detective Mark Travis had spent 20 years on the force, but nothing could prepare him for interrogating the people who knew his son best. He wasn't officially assigned to the case. Department protocol made that impossible, but everyone in the precinct knew he was watching from the sidelines. And in truth, few dared to stop him. The first breakthrough came from a girl named Riley. She'd been at the party the night Danny was killed. A quiet sophomore who studied nursing and didn't make waves, until her name popped up on a security cam review. She was seen exiting the party minutes after the gunshot, phone clutched to her chest, looking over her shoulder. She didn't call 911. When asked why she hadn't come forward sooner, Riley hesitated. "I didn't want to get involved. He had some issues with this guy. He said if anything ever happened to just stay out of it. What guy? The detective asked. I don't know his name. Just that he drove a silver Charger. Out-of-state plates. And he wasn't someone you messed with. That's all she had. No plate number. No last name. Just that silver Dodge Charger and the tension in her voice. Back at the precinct, one name kept circling. Jason Cruz, a street-smart student who'd clashed with Danny weeks prior, supposedly over a parking spot, but more likely over something, or someone else. Jason had a record, misdemeanor assault, suspected drug connections, and more importantly, a known relationship with a woman named Maya Diaz. Yes, that Maya. The same one whose name had been saved in Danny's phone. Travis clenched his fists as he stared at her social media profile. Maya Diaz, 22, psychology major. Her most recent post was a black square captioned, "Rest in peace, D." I'm sorry. Sorry for what? According to friends, Maya had dated Jason Cruz for most of the last year, until about a month before Danny's death. That's when rumors started flying. Maya had left Jason and Danny had swooped in. Travis's stomach turned. Was this a love triangle? Or something even more volatile? One of Danny's teammates, Isaiah Brandt, was the next to be interviewed. He was nervous, sweaty, even angry. He was trying to fix it, Isaiah said. He told me that night. He said, I'm gonna talk to Jason and straighten it out. He thought he could handle it. Handle what? The detective pressed. Isaiah hesitated. Maya came to the party. She and Danny fought outside. She told him to let it go. That Jason wasn't going to just walk away. Danny wouldn't listen. And Jason? Was he there? Isaiah looked down. I didn't see him. But someone said a Charger drove past the house right before the shot. The case was no longer simple. It wasn't just about a boy gunned down outside a party. It was about pride, anger, and escalating threats. And Jason Cruz? He was nowhere to be found. When investigators checked his apartment, they found signs of a rushed exit. Clothes gone. Laptop missing. Lease unpaid. A neighbor said they saw him load up a car late Sunday night, hours after Danny's death. By midweek, the DA issued a warrant for Cruz's arrest on suspicion of murder. But he was gone. No bank activity. No phone signal. It was as if he'd vanished. But not everyone had disappeared. Maya agreed to speak, on one condition: the conversation stayed off the record. Sitting across from Travis, her face pale, she whispered, He was trying to protect me. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I told Jason it was over. I begged him to stop calling. But he said if he couldn't have me, no one could. The look in her eyes told the story. Fear, regret, and something else, shame. She added one more thing before she left. He never wanted Danny dead. He just wanted him scared. But Jason doesn't know how to stop. The manhunt for Jason Cruz spanned state lines, but the emotional chase, the one fueled by grief and rage, was far more personal. For Detective Travis, this wasn't just about bringing in a suspect. It was about facing the truth that someone he'd never met had slowly been circling his family like a predator. And now that predator had vanished. The official timeline placed Jason Cruz at the center of the shooting within a 3-hour window. Multiple witness statements corroborated seeing a silver Dodge Charger circling the neighborhood before and after the fatal shot. But no one had seen Jason pull the trigger. Not directly. And without the weapon or surveillance capturing the moment, the case still hung in the balance of circumstantial threads. For Travis, that wasn't enough. He had already memorized Cruz's face: square jaw, faint scar under the left eye, the kind of stare that hides as much as it threatens. The kind of young man you don't trust in a dark room, or in the orbit of your son. But this wasn't just instinct. Clues were stacking. Credit card traces led to a truck stop just outside of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Surveillance captured a man resembling Cruz filling up a Charger with tinted windows. The timestamp? 4:26 a.m., 3 hours after Danny was pronounced dead. Still, the car was unregistered, likely borrowed or bought cash, and Cruz's phone had been off since before the party. The feds joined the search once it crossed state lines. U.S. Marshals canvassed motels, contacted former acquaintances, and flagged known associates. Meanwhile, Travis worked the angles his badge wouldn't allow. He visited Maya Diaz again. You need to tell me everything, he said. Everything you've ever heard, seen, felt. I don't care if it's a hunch. She looked smaller than before, tucked into the edge of the couch, blanket drawn around her knees. Her voice barely held. He used to talk about Montana, she whispered. He said no one checks for warrants up there. His cousin has a place near Missoula, I think. It was a long shot, but long shots sometimes hit. Travis didn't wait. He called in a favor with a contact in the Missoula County Sheriff's Department. Within 48 hours, a tip came through. A Charger matching the description had been towed from an abandoned gravel lot near a rundown lodge. Plates wiped clean. VIN filed off. Still no Jason. But then came a break. A gas station clerk remembered a man fitting Cruz's profile buying gloves and ramen noodles 3 nights before. The kicker? He paid with a prepaid card. Tracing that card led to a motel reservation under the name Ricardo Gomez. Surveillance showed the suspect entering room 214, alone. When law enforcement breached the room, it was empty. Still warm. A toothbrush in the sink. Phone charger still plugged in. And a receipt for a bus ticket. He was always a step ahead. Back in New York, Travis hit a wall. Not in the case, but in his soul. The grief, the guilt, the endless what-ifs began closing in. He hadn't known about Maya. Hadn't known Danny was getting threats. Hadn't seen the signs. At the station, his partner, Detective Jenna Myers, finally sat him down. "You're not responsible for this," she said. "You're his father, Mark. Not his shadow. You can't follow them everywhere." He nodded, but his silence said otherwise. Later that night, Travis found himself in Danny's room, untouched since the funeral. Posters of baseball legends still lined the wall. His college textbook sat half open on the desk. A half-written essay on ethics and criminal justice blinked on the screen. The cursor blinked like a metronome of what could have been. Then he noticed something. A small, unmarked flash drive taped to the back of Danny's bookshelf. Inside were voice memos. Dozens of them. One recorded the week before he died. "I don't know how to handle Jason anymore. He keeps showing up. He won't take no. I told Maya to cut him off, but she's scared. I'm scared too. He said he'd end this. I don't know what that means, but I don't want to find out." The voice cracked. Not Danny the confident athlete. Not Danny the son of a cop. Just a scared young man trying to protect someone he loved. It wasn't just about a bullet. It was about a life interrupted. And the people still haunted by what they didn't say soon enough. Sometimes justice isn't found in a courtroom. Sometimes it's in the quiet things. A voice memo hidden behind books, a receipt left on a motel nightstand, a name whispered just once before the trail goes cold. For Detective Travis, each clue wasn't just evidence. It was the only way left to hold on to his son. The flash drive changed everything. It wasn't just evidence. It was confession, foreshadowing, and heartbreak all at once. Danny had recorded over a dozen memos across several weeks. Some were raw thoughts, others sounded like journal entries, meant for himself or maybe someday for the people left behind. In one recording, Danny described an altercation that happened 2 weeks before his death. He showed up to Maya's work, cornered her in the back lot. She called me crying. I went down there, but he'd already left. She's scared he's going to hurt her. I am too. The tone in Danny's voice was unlike anything Travis had ever heard from his son. No bravado, no jokes, just fear and resignation. The evidence wasn't legally damning, but it told a story. And stories matter when building pressure. Armed with the information, Travis made his next move, against protocol. He contacted Maya again and asked her to go public. "It's not safe," she said. "I know," Travis replied. "But he's still out there. And your silence might be the very thing he's counting on." After a long pause, Maya agreed, but with conditions. She would do it through a controlled media interview, using her first name only, and with police protection. The interview aired on local evening news. Maya, her voice trembling but unwavering, recounted the emotional abuse, the threats, and how Jason Cruz had stalked her in the months before Danny's murder. The community responded swiftly. Anonymous tips began pouring in. One tip came from a man in Toledo, Ohio. He managed a storage facility and recognized Cruz's photo. "He was here last week," he said. "Paid for a unit under the name Eric Santiago. Had a busted-up suitcase and looked like he hadn't slept in days." Surveillance confirmed it, Jason Cruz. Within 24 hours, police raided the unit. Inside they found clothing, prepaid cell phones, multiple fake IDs, and a loaded Glock 19. Ballistics testing would later match the Glock to the shell casing found at the crime scene. But again, Jason was gone. However, he had made a mistake. One of the burner phones had been left behind, and while it was factory reset, digital forensics pulled partial GPS pings from nearby cell towers. The last active ping had been just 2 days prior, on the edge of a wooded area near Cleveland. That's when Travis did something no protocol allowed. He went alone. He didn't tell the department. He didn't tell his partner. He told himself it was because he didn't want red tape. But deep down he knew why. This was personal. He drove through the night, adrenaline drowning out exhaustion. By the time he reached the outskirts of Cleveland, fog had settled like a blanket over the roads. He pulled up to an abandoned RV park, a cluster of decaying trailers, trash-strewn lots, and graffiti-tagged walls. The kind of place no one stayed unless they had nowhere left to go. Gun holstered, badge in his coat pocket, Travis stepped into the silence. One of the trailers had a cracked window, faint light inside. He moved cautiously, listening. Inside, the air was stale, thick with sweat and rot. A mattress lay on the floor. Cans of energy drinks. A small camping stove. And there, curled in the corner, clutching a kitchen knife, was Jason Cruz. They locked eyes. Jason stood up slowly, knife trembling in his hand. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "You killed my son," Travis answered, voice even. "And you're done running." Jason took a shaky step forward. "You don't know what he did." Travis didn't flinch. "He protected someone you couldn't control. That's what he did." For a moment, neither man moved. Then Jason dropped the knife. Backup arrived 20 minutes later after Travis called in the arrest himself. No shots fired. No violence. Just a quiet, bitter end. At the station, Jason offered no confession, no apology. He lawyered up immediately. But the recovered firearm, matched ballistics, burner phone data, and Maya's testimony were more than enough. He was indicted on charges of second-degree murder, stalking, and unlawful possession of a firearm. In court, Jason stared straight ahead. No emotion. No acknowledgement of the family he'd shattered. Travis, sitting beside his wife, held her hand the entire time. They didn't come for vengeance. They came for closure. Trials don't bring back the dead. They don't fill empty chairs at dinner tables or erase the sound of a parent's tears at midnight. But for some, they're the only public ritual left to acknowledge what was lost, and what went unanswered. For the Travis family, it wasn't just about guilt or innocence. It was about truth finally spoken out loud. The courtroom was small, unassuming, light gray walls, wooden benches worn from years of sorrow and sentencing. Yet on the day the trial began, it held the collective breath of a town that had watched a quiet homicide unravel into something much larger. A story of love, power, protection, and a murder that struck deep into the heart of its law enforcement family. Jason Cruz faced charges of second-degree murder, aggravated stalking, unlawful possession of a firearm, and obstruction of justice. The prosecution's case was built on a chilling narrative: a jealous ex-boyfriend turned predator who stalked and threatened his former girlfriend, and killed the man who stood in his way. Maya took the stand on day 3. She wore black, her voice soft but clear. "He kept texting me," she told the court, "calling me from blocked numbers. He once left a note on my windshield even though I hadn't told anyone where I lived." She paused. "And when Danny stepped in, when he told him to back off, I think that's when Jason started planning something worse." The defense tried to paint Jason as unstable but not violent, a man pushed over the edge by heartbreak. But the evidence told a different story: a recovered Glock matching the crime scene casing, a burner phone that traced his movements, a storage unit filled with fake IDs, and an audio diary from Danny Travis that laid out the fear they had been living under. Detective Mark Travis wasn't called to testify. His involvement in the initial evidence trail was considered a conflict of interest, but his presence in the courtroom was felt every day. He sat silently beside his wife, hands folded, eyes forward. The man who'd solved dozens of murders now watched his own son's killer being tried by the system he had served for over 20 years. There was no dramatic moment of confession. No tearful apology. Jason remained stoic throughout, eyes flat, jaw clenched. But the jury saw through it. After just 8 hours of deliberation, the verdict was read. Guilty on all counts. The air in the room shifted. Relief, grief, vindication, all tangled together. Jason Cruz was sentenced to 38 years in prison, with no chance of parole before serving 28. A sentence long enough to send a message, but never long enough to truly balance the loss. At the sentencing hearing, Mark Travis was given the opportunity to speak. He stepped forward, papers in hand, but didn't read from them. Instead, he looked directly at Jason. "You took my son," he said, "and there's nothing this court can do to fix that. But I need you to hear something. Danny wasn't just a victim. He was a protector. He stepped in where others stayed quiet. He loved fiercely. And you hated him for it." He took a breath. "You didn't just kill a man. You tried to kill what he stood for. And you failed." Jason didn't look up. Months passed. The story faded from headlines but not from memory. The Travis home, once filled with the laughter of a college senior planning his next steps, now held the weight of a young life cut short. Danny's room was left mostly untouched. A pair of running shoes under the bed. A hoodie still slung over the back of a chair. The calendar on the wall still marked for Dad's birthday dinner. But there was one new addition. A framed photo of Danny in his football jersey, next to the badge Mark had retired after the trial ended. He stepped away from the force just 3 weeks later. He never gave a formal statement about why. But those closest to him knew the truth. He'd spent his life bringing justice to families like his. And now that he had become one of them, the job was never going to feel the same. Maya eventually left town. Quietly. She moved to a new state, changed her number, and started over. Before she left, she wrote a letter to the Travis family. I don't know what to say that can ever be enough. But I need you to know, Danny saved me. In more ways than I can count. And I carry that with me every day. Some stories end with closure. Some don't. This one ends with a scar. A reminder that even one bullet can fracture dozens of lives. That the people behind the badge are not immune to tragedy. That silence can be just as deadly as a gunshot. And that sometimes it takes a father's love and a son's courage to finally bring the truth to light. Justice may have been served in the courtroom, but for the Travis family, the pain will never fully go away. One life lost, another behind bars, but the ripple effects continue. What would you have done in Danny's shoes? And how far would you go to protect someone you love? If this story gripped you, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life cases that dive deep into the lives behind the headlines. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss our next upload. And if you have thoughts, theories, or know someone this could help, drop a comment below. We're listening.